Well, hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. Years ago, my father-in-law took my boys and me on a fly-in fishing trip in northern Ontario, northwest Ontario, and it was so exciting. It was kind of a trip of a lifetime. The boys were about fourth grade, and they were just learning how to thrive in an environment where there wasn't a lot of resources. We were very much alone. We were the only people on this lake for 4 days. There was no cell service. There was a satellite phone in case we got stuck, but pretty much we had to problem solve and do everything on our own. And it was a great time. It was an adventure. And we caught a lot of fish. And I'll never forget, there was a moment where, my father-in-law was so generous to bring us, and he brought my brothers-in-law and one of my nephews as well. And there was this moment on the trip where my father-in-law caught a big fish. He caught a nice walleye, one of the best walleyes of his life. And he let out this burst of emotion that sort of resonated throughout the whole lake. He gave a big whoop and was super excited about catching this fish. And this was the culmination of a lot of planning and a lot of care and a lot of sacrifice that he had made. And it was just this burst of emotion, like everything was coming together. We were having a great time, and we were enjoying this trip, and here he caught the fish of a lifetime. And I wonder, can you relate? I mean, have you ever had a moment where you've sort of let out this outburst of emotion and celebrated something good in your life? I think of that, and I think of 2 Samuel chapter 6, where King David has been working through it, right? He's been in a process of leading the nation of Israel. He's the king, and all kinds of things are going on, and there's this pressure from the outside, the Philistines, that are constantly at war with the nation of Israel. And finally, after a lot of effort, David is able to restore the Ark of the Covenant to the people of Israel. See, previously, earlier in the narrative in 1 Samuel, the people of Israel had used the Ark of the Covenant as a rabbit's foot. They brought it in a time where they were not following the Lord, and they sort of just assumed that if they would use the Ark of the Covenant as a lucky charm, if you will, that God would honor that and that he would deliver them from the Philistines. Well, of course, the Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines. God was not impressed. But here, after this time of restoration and renewal, and David leading the people back to the Lord and to following him, the Ark of the Covenant comes back. And there's this beautiful narrative here where in 2 Samuel 6 verse 14, as the Ark of the Covenant has coming in to Israel and to Jerusalem, it says, David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was wearing a linen ephod. And so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the horn. Here, it's not quite like David dancing in his underwear, as sometimes is portrayed, but he's in his linen ephod. He's in his undergarments, to be sure, and he's dancing before the Lord. He's throwing off his dignity, and he's celebrating God's faithfulness and God's provision. And then it says in verse 16, as the ark came into the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. Okay. Here, David's wife, Michal, the daughter of Saul, she's despising David for his celebration of what God is doing. And I wonder, have you ever been in a relationship with the Lord, in your relationship with the Lord, and you're excited about what God is doing, and you felt the disdain of those around you? I think that can happen sometimes. It can happen. Maybe you felt it in a small group that you were a part of. Maybe you felt it in church. Maybe you were worshiping, and your emotion got the best of you, and all of a sudden you realized people were staring at you or something like that. I love David's response to Michal here. I think it's so powerful, and it's one that ever since I heard it the first time, it's resonated with me, and it's how I want to be willing to be undignified for the Lord. It says this in verse 21, and David said to Michal, it was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me as priest over Israel, the people of the Lord, and I will celebrate before the Lord. David says, I'm gonna do what I do. I'm going to celebrate God's goodness. And then he says, I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes. But by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in high honor. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. And what's David saying here? He's saying, look, I'm going to be undignified before God. I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to worship because God has done an amazing thing. And so you can disdain me all you want, but I'm going to give God the glory and the credit that God is due. Friends, I'm not saying you have to go outside and dance in a linen ephod. That'd be weird, right? Maybe there's an occasion for that. Probably not, right? But I think the Lord is going to give you, as He does all of us, opportunities to respond with genuine worship that throws inhibition to the wind and says, God, you are amazing. Friends, our God is worthy of all that we have and all that we are. He's the God who brings the ark back into Jerusalem. He's the God who delivers us from evil. He's the God who walks with us in our trials and who promises to go before us and to restore us when we're broken. Friends, let's celebrate that kind of God today and always. I will become even more undignified than this. How about you? Praise God. Have a great day. And Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.